There are a couple things that you just have to know to get this one. First thing is that for a right isosceles triangle, the sides are always in this ratio. So if you've got one of these triangles and the 90 is here, this side is x, this one is also x, and the hypotenuse is x root 2. And you can check that out with Pythagorean theorem, and you'll see that that works out every time for a right isosceles triangle. So you have to know that. And once you do apply that, you end up with this. Because we're given that the perimeter is 16 plus 16 root 2. What we want to know is the hypotenuse. So let's remember that we're not solving for x, we're solving for x root 2. You might feel a little stuck here because you can't combine those terms. But keep focusing on isolating your variable. And here we do have the opportunity to factor. So let's pull out that x, make life a little bit simpler. And now we can divide both sides by this so we can isolate x, right? We're always trying to do whatever we can to simplify things, isolate our variable. Now, some people get stuck here because you've got this radical in the denominator. You can't cross things out. But whenever you have a radical down here, let's remember that we can rationalize. When you have a radical by itself, you just multiply by that radical over itself. Easy. But when you've got a radical that has another number involved with it, as you do here, you use difference of squares. So if down here you've got plus, then you multiply by minus, and of course you got to do top and bottom. And then the bottom is difference of squares. So we basically created this, so that equals this. X squared minus y squared. So in this case, x squared minus y squared is going to be 4 minus 2, or just 2. That's not the answer, right? That's x. We need to multiply it by root 2. Let's try this one plugging in the answer choices. I'm just going to start us at the beginning here, just creating our equation. And then let's look at our answer choices here. We've got these. And let's realize that our answer choices are not x. They're x root 2. So if you want to plug them in for x, you're going to have to divide them by root 2. So for instance, 8 over root 2, right? We've got to rationalize that to make life a little easier. So that equals 4 root 2. Same thing for 16. And I can see that because 8 became 4 root 2, 16 is going to become 8 root 2. And you do this with all these. It's easier with these because when you divide them by root 2, you just get the number, the integer. Now we can take these, each one, plug them in for x, and the correct answer is going to make it so that this side equals this side. So let's look at the first one, 4 root 2, see what happens. So we're just putting that in for x. And you can see that this definitely does not equal this. So that means that 8 is not the right answer. So let's go ahead and try the second one. can already kind of see that this one is matching up better because we're going to get 16. And then the root 2 times root 2 is just 2. So and this is clearly the same as this. So that one works. So the answer must be B, 16. There's actually a third way of doing this using some approximation. And I'd start the same way, just getting this isolated, dividing and bringing that over here. And let's remember that we're looking for x root 2. So I'd multiply both sides by root 2. And you might be saying to yourself, that doesn't look so great. Still have this root 2, can't really cross stuff out. But let's remember that root 2 is just 1.4. So we can simplify that a little bit. And 2 plus 1.4, that's just 3.4. And now you might be saying, but these decimals are kind of a nuisance. And they are, but you can just multiply by 10. Just make sure you do everything by 10. And then we could take out a 2, so just going to move over here. And then I might just say to myself, because they're so close that that can cross, and that's pretty close to 10. And that leaves us at 17. And we know that we're a little bit below 17 because 160 over 17 is a little bit less than 10. And 16 over 17 is a little bit less than 1. Just a little. So we know we're just below 17. And the closest one by far is 16. There's nothing else that's even close. You've got 16 root 2, which is about just a little below 24. You've got 8 root 2, which is just about 12. So those are way too far off. So 16 is really the only answer that you can consider. You might be wondering when it's appropriate to do this kind of approximation. And I would say look at the answers. If they're far apart enough to allow you to shift things around a little bit, great, go for it. If things are like to the millionth, like one is like 0.998 and the other one is 0.999, you're probably not going to do this kind of fudging of the numbers.